All right. Now that we fired off some takes about the future of college football, let's fire off some more hot takes about the immediate future in 2025. Craven, we each are coming to the table with 3 bold predictions. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? How do you want to do this? Do we want to go order of most spicy to least spicy? How do we do this?
You go first with your most spicy one. We'll work down.
I've got 2 that could probably be in contention, but I'm going to start off with the Texas Longhorns because this is the most hyper-specific one. Texas goes 9-3. All right, first off, everyone close your eyes, except if you're driving and listening to this. Don't close your eyes. But picture this. Texas will go 9-3. They miss the SEC championship game, but they make the college football playoff over either an ACC or Big 12 conference championship game participant. That means they make it over SMU or Miami or Texas Tech or Iowa State that lost the championship game. And it is the single most controversial college football playoff decision ever. And it's made because someone makes a call that we need Arch Manning in the college football playoff.
I mean, it is an invitational, so I wouldn't put it past them. I'm not sure a 3-loss team gets in. And the reason I would say that is if you tell me the 3 losses that you think Texas would have, I'd imagine it'd be Ohio State, Georgia, and maybe Oklahoma.
I'm throwing in Florida. You convinced me last week. The DJ Lagway versus Arch Manning battle trap game before Oklahoma. They drop a game they shouldn't. Let's add that in there. One of their losses is bad.
So let's say it's Ohio State, Georgia, and Florida, right? I don't think a 3-loss Texas team can get in because that means their only other good win would be Oklahoma, right? Like they would need, they would need like to either beat Ohio State or Georgia and then lose 2, like lose to like Florida, Oklahoma, and A&M, but have Ohio State and Georgia wins in their ledger. Because I do think, contrary to what Greg Sankey is saying in front of a mic, big wins are what get you at the table, like get you in the conversation with this committee. It's not so much your losses. It's like, how good are you on your best day? Not so much how bad are you on your worst. And if they've proven on their best day, they can go to Ohio State or they can go to Georgia. Maybe they get in. But if they lose those 2 marquee games plus another, I'm just not sure their schedule is big enough to like make up for that.
Okay. So let me switch the hypothetical to they beat Ohio State. They beat Oklahoma. They lose to Georgia. So they've lost an SEC game. They lose to Texas A&M and then lose to Florida. So wait, they have 3 SEC losses.
Yeah, I think they got a shot if they've beaten Ohio State and like an Oklahoma or an Ohio State and Georgia. Like they have to have a feather or 2 in their cap to overcome it.
And also in this hypothetical, Arch Manning is a Heisman finalist who has just backpacked the team to it. Like they're a worse team than last year, but they were 9-3 because Arch Manning is playing like a god.
And you also need the favorites to win in the Big 12 and ACC championship game. Like had SMU beat Clemson last year, Alabama's in and we're not having some of these conversations, right? But Clemson won, took that spot, and they couldn't leave out a 1 loss, then 2 loss because of the championship. Like they don't count the championship game as your real loss anymore, if we've noticed that. And so SMU, they couldn't leave out with only 1 regular season loss. They played an extra game. So it would really be a 3-loss team versus a 1-loss team in the way that they were doing it. They need the favorites. Like if a 10-2 Tech is playing a 9-3 Baylor or something, and they need Tech to win that so they don't get a spot stolen. Like, and you know, they don't. And so I think it would need that as well for this scenario to work.
So you're telling me there's a chance. I'm threading the needle here. On a 1 to 5 flame rating at Pluckers, like what is this?
I think it's a 4 because they would need a lot to go on for this to happen, and they would need to win some big games, I think, and lose some not big games for it to work because they would need some resume builders. I think my spiciest take is the winner of UTSA North Texas makes the AAC Championship game.
Okay.
I may be too deep into the woods here. Like this happens magazine season, right? You're doing 5 pages on a school. You can start talking yourself into them being good very quickly. But that UTSA offense, probably the best unit in the AAC, maybe in the G5, bringing back literally almost everybody, should be healthier this year, especially if they get a couple of offensive linemen back from surgeries and can, you know, get deep along the offensive line. Running game comes along. Owen McCown might be the best quarterback in the G5. And if the McCown family and the Traylor family weren't so tight, he's probably not at UTSA anymore, right? Like it's just one of those special circumstances that are giving the Roadrunners a real opportunity here. The defense loses a lot, but they have to be better. Like I just don't see a Jeff Traylor team being as undisciplined as they were last year. They weren't good at tackling. They weren't good at holding leads, and they were god awful with penalties. Like they figured that stuff out in the back half of the season. I'm just going to count on that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just going to count on that correcting itself and being better. And then North Texas, to me, it's the route. Like they don't have Memphis. They don't have Tulane. They get UTSA at home. If they win that game, the only real game in the conference that they're probably an underdog in is at Army, and that's the first game of the conference season. They do play 3 option teams, Navy, Army, and Rice, and North Texas hasn't been good stopping the run. And saying not good at stopping the run is the understatement of this show. They were god-awful at stopping the run. But kind of how I'm counting on coaching at UTSA to fix some of the undisciplined stuff. Skylar Cassidy is good at this. And he brought in enough familiar faces to his defense that I think they hit the ground running. They improved by like 40 or 50 spots in 1 year in Sam Houston in total defense. I think they do the same at North Texas. And we've talked about it for 2 years. If North Texas is just good on defense, they don't have to be great. If they're just good on defense, the offense is going to be one of the top 10 offenses in the country. So you combine the schedule, you combine the improvement on the defensive side of the ball. If you buy into that, I think the winner of that game has a great shot to play for the conference championship against an Army or Tulane or a Memphis.
I'm only giving that take 2.5 fire emojis because I just agree with it so much.
I'm not a great hot take. This one's going to be tough for me. I'm not a great hot take guy. I'm not a crazy opinion guy. I'm pretty down the mid. So that to me, that's going out on a limb.
I mean, I was reading your UTSA preview, and I'm not going to give it all away, of course. Go check it out when it comes out July 4th weekend, somewhere around there in stores, or if you're a subscriber at TexasFootball.com. But he has some quote in there, Traylor does, where he's like, when we first got here, we were some hungry dogs, and we lost that last year. And that mindset, like I was fired up, ready to run through a brick wall reading it, So, and last year, they go 7-6. They have a winning season. And the way he's talking about it was a full cultural reset they have. So I'm kind of all in on UTSA, especially with Owen McCown.
Yeah, I think everyone underestimated the transition year that was going to be after Frank Harris and Rashad Wisdom, and a lot of those leaders just left. And then, Traylor was in on the Houston job. He was in on the A&M job. I just think that there was a lot going on there for UTSA, and they didn't respond well. They started really poorly in the first half of the year before figuring it out. They had arguably their 2 worst losses under Traylor, against Tulsa and against Rice last year, and arguably their biggest win, beating a ranked Memphis team at home when the season was on the line. And I'm just gambling, and I'm using, past history here. I just think they're more the second half team of the year than they were the first half of the season. Bringing back your quarterback and some of that leadership, I think, is going to help them. They feel like they did pretty good portal-wise on the defensive side of the ball. Like, that's the big question. It's just I think the offense is going to be tremendous. The defense has to be good, and last year they were bad, and they were also a bad situational football team. Like, again, they were god-awful with penalties and turnovers. If they can figure that stuff out, they got a chance to kind of recalibrate and get to a conference championship game for the 4th time in, 6 years that he's been there.
And then I just agree with everything you said on North Texas. Just defense has to be okay, basically. And I think, I don't know, like maybe this offensive personnel is a bit shakier than it was in the past 2 years. Like I probably was more excited about Chandler Morris coming in to quarterback this team than I am about either of the 2 options they have right now. But at the same time, like Eric Morris is going to scheme mirror you to 35 points a game. So
right.
Like, I think it's gonna be all right. And like I'm a Skylar Cassidy believer. So
same.
I think it'll be good.
I mean, if I'm hiring an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator in the state, like 2 of the I'm thinking of Eric Morris calling plays, and I'm thinking of Skylar Cassidy coaching the defense. Like I'm not saying they're like top of the list, but like they're definitely in those conversations. They have both of those guys. I like what they did in the portal. There's a huge volatility with the portal. You just never know. It can go boom or bust very quickly, as Florida State. But if it hits plus that schedule, I think the Mean Green can be a real surprise of the G5. If you're a gambling person, North Texas to win the American is a solid bet to place because not many people are going to be paying attention to that.
All right, I'm going with my number 2 take. This one might be pretty spicy. At Texas Tech, backup quarterback Will Hammond, Wally Pips, starting quarterback Behren Morton at some point this season. Kind of like Kevin Jennings did to Preston Stone last year at SMU. And let me get a couple qualifiers out of the way. This is not so much a knock on Behren Morton as it is I'm a believer in Will Hammond. I think Behren Morton's a program guy. He's tough as hell. By all accounts, he's a great leader. I think there is a level of quarterback play that injuries to his arm and various nagging stuff has kind of prevented him from reaching when he came out of high school. And with this roster and the money invested in it, they just can't afford to have a guy who's banged up when there's a 4-star behind him. This is also going along with the fact that he missed spring football and they have so many more new transfers in that he couldn't build chemistry with. And from everything I saw on the very outside looking in, he handled the injury very well. And he's so bought in like during the spring. So this is not like a Behren Morton that hasn't handled anything right, but you can't have any substitute for reps with a bunch of new guys on your team. And Will Hammond got that.
And I think the big point here, and the reason that I can see this unfolding, is if Morton gets hurt kind of early in the season, has to miss a game or two, and Hammond comes in and just lights it up, and you just have so much riding on this season that you just go with the hot hand and maybe he never gives it back. Mm-hmm. And that's I think that the Kevin Jennings, Preston Stone scenario is possible because, again, I'm not sure Kevin Jennings is like all that much better of a quarterback than Preston Stone, just like for like. Right. And I don't know if Will Hammond is a better or worse quarterback than Behren Morton. They're probably pretty similar prospects. But I do think some teams just play better with different quarterbacks. And if Hammond gets inserted early in the year, has a big game or two while Morton's kind of nursing an injury, I can see this team going, we have all of these puzzle pieces. We're trying to win this thing. We're on a roll. We're just going to ride the hot hand, and maybe Hammond just never gives it back because he is a talented SOB. He is a really, really good football player who I think his upside is more than post-surgeries Morton. He's athletic. He can run around. He's big, got a strong arm. I think Will Hammond's the real deal, and I know that staff does as well.
There was kind of a different electricity in the air when he went against TCU.
Yeah, I think he can. I think, we talked about the, what is it? A trailer or a truck or a trailer type of thing. I think Will Hammond can be the type that drives it, right? That can pull it along, not just a part of the mechanism. I think he can go win you a Big 12 championship. He was great. I mean, I live right next to Hutto, so I've seen him for a long time. He's a really good football player who, if given an opportunity, a real one, I think could just take the horns and never let it go.
Yeah. Again, if this was 3 years ago and Joey just got the job, I don't know if this happens, but now that it's year 4 of the Joey McGuire era, Behrens ending his eligibility, you've had Will Hammond stay there for 2 years now. There is so much urgency on this season that it might not even be hey, this quarterback's playing bad. It's this quarterback is just a little bit better and our other quarterback's hurt a little bit.
Yeah. And we feel like we can go be a playoff team and we want the upside. And we're just going to go for this thing. That season does allow you to their schedule does allow you to kind of ease into it. So if Morton plays well and they're 5-0, go, I don't know, maybe you just kind of keep this thing on the tracks. It just depends on how Morton plays early on in the season. All signs point to the shoulder being okay, as good as it was last year. And he played for most of the season there. So we'll see. But I mean, Hammond is clearly the projected starter in 2026, and maybe the future just starts early if they love what they see over the summer and in the fall. I think my next spicy one, maybe this is spicier than my first one. I think 2 Texas teams are going to play for the Big 12 championship.
I think this one's spicier than your first one.
I mean, Texas Tech needs to be in Arlington.
Yes.
We talked about this last show. If you don't hit the over this year on 8.5, that was a failure. 9-3 or 10-2 needs to be the standard. They need to be in Arlington. That 7-2 got you into the Big 12 championship game last year. I think that they can do that. They don't play TCU. They don't play Baylor. I think that they have a decent enough schedule. They need to be in the Big 12 championship. I think I have 2 options to get the other one right. Anybody who's listened to the show and read my stuff throughout the offseason knows how I feel about Baylor. I think the Bears can be really good. Again, they have a schedule that lines up as well. Arizona State early in the year. You can lose those non-conference games to SMU and Auburn and still be right in the driver's seat here. Like, you don't have to ace the non-conference stuff. You just have to get hot in conference. They did that last year with a great run. They returned so much on both sides of the ball. I think Dave Aranda calling the defense for the second year in a row is going to help them. My wild card here is TCU. I think the Horned Frogs are completely undervalued by gambling lines and just by Joe Public. I don't know how TCU and Houston have the same win total projections. TCU's schedule is pretty tough, but like, it's the Big 12. Like, who the hell knows what the tough schedule is going to be, what the easy schedule is going to be. I love their quarterback. Josh Hoover is excellent. They did great replacing those wide receivers. They're going to be better running the football. Andy Avalos is like really high on this defense. Like, Avalos isn't the most excitable guy in the world. And he was like happy when I was there talking to him. Like, he was like in a good mood to be talking about his defense, which I think lends me to believe that he's like really confident in that group. They're going to be a lot deeper this year with some playmakers on the ball. I like their roster building. You know, I wrote that article early in the week about how TCU and Tech have kind of taken different routes, but it's not the TCU. I think some people read the headline and kind of got mad at me because like TCU has also used the transfer portal. They just didn't go do it in like 1 year splash superstar established play. Like, they didn't go get the David Baileys and the Lee Hunters of the world. They went and got some guys that like they developed last year and were multiple year transfer guys who are like becoming better and better football players who are still there, who are kind of the old school recruit where you develop them and kind of unleash them. They didn't have to go into it as much this year except for depth. I think TCU could be like, there's always a Big 12 team that surprises. I think TCU could be that team that is undervalued this year that wins 10 games.
And Houston?
I don't think Houston is. I mean, I guess if everything hits, who knows? I mean, Willie Fritz, like, I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't see
race.
Yeah, I think it's a 3-team race. I think Houston could get to maybe 7 or 8 wins, but this would be insane. And I mean, a team has done it. Arizona State was picked last year. Like, if we were having this conversation this time last year, neither one of us would think Arizona State was going to be that team. So like, Houston could be, who knows? But I wouldn't bet on it.
I love the TCU being a surprise team call. I agree with you. They're so undervalued. I don't know how them and Houston have both 6.5 over under totals. Texas Tech and Baylor, one of them is they both have such high expectations. One of them is going to fall short, I think. I don't know which one it's going to be, but one of them is going to.
Who do you think it's most likely to be?
Texas Tech.
I do too. I think Texas Tech has the highest ceiling, and I think Texas Tech has the lowest floor because of the Florida State dilemma, right? Yep. Like, if this starts well and they're 7-8-0 and they're in the mix, like, I think Texas Tech could be a 10-2, 11-1, get a bye into the playoff. Like, Tech could be really good at their best. But if they lose an early game or they stub their toe, they have some injuries, like, I just think it could fall apart. And their expectations are higher. And so I do think Tech is the volatile one here. They could be the Big 12 champion. They could be 7-5.
And you might be listening to this like, guys, look at their schedule. It's so easy. I can't get the Abilene Christian game out of my head from last year.
Right. Or at Washington State.
Or like Wyoming before that. Like 2 years ago.
Right. 100%. Like, they have shown the ability to go mess a game up on the road, especially early in the year. And that's something that this coaching staff knows that they're trying to address, but like, you don't know. And I do think this schedule is easier, but it's still the Big 12. There's still going to be teams that can pop up and get you. You're still going to have to go on the road where I think you're 6-9 so far, something like 6-11, something like that in the tenure. And so there's still a lot to be seen from this Texas Tech thing, but their roster is great. Like, both of those things are true. And if it hits, they should be the class of the conference. But as we've seen in this league, that doesn't always mean anything. Like, this thing isn't played on paper. This thing is eight or nine coin flips, right? Yep. And you hope you win 7 or 8 of them. And TCU did it a couple years ago. Arizona State did it. Oklahoma State did it 2 years. Like, you're going to need that. And we'll see if Tech can land on that side of the margin.
Yeah, I am like 60-40, 60%. I think this is all going to work out, but there is 40% of me that is like, there are some things that concern me. I almost made my hot take Texas Tech goes 8-5 or 7-6, and Joey McGuire's on the hottest seat in college football entering 2026. And I didn't do it because I 60% think it's going to work out. And I think Joey McGuire is a really good coach. But there could be stuff that's like with the mercenary army deal, the Florida State, all the transfers, like these aren't guys he's known. Like when he was back in high school, coaching them all 4 years, there are some stuff that makes me nervous.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Kent State, Oregon State, all at home, they should be 3-0. But you can go on the road and lose to Utah.
100%.
They brought in a really good quarterback from the G5 that should be exciting. And then 2 weeks later, you go on the road and play at Houston. We saw Kansas State and TCU lose to the Cougars last year. This is going to be a better Houston team. Like if you start Big 12 play 0-2, and those are both road games, right? Like the wheels fall off. Like the checks are already cashed. Like you haven't had those guys for 4 years where you've been in foxholes with them and you've built up this it can get Florida Statey in a hurry. I wouldn't bet on that. I'm betting the other way. I think they go 9-3, 10-2, reach the Big 12 championship game. But there is a scenario where they start slow in the Big 12. They don't feel like there's that much out in front of them, and it just, kind of falls by the wayside a little bit. Whereas I think Baylor, it's so many guys who have been in that program. There's so much continuity with the coordinators and the head coach. I just think they're less likely to completely bottom out. They may not reach their ceiling, but I think that there's less margin of them being like a complete letdown.
They're foxhole guys. Most of the guys coming back were 2-4 last year when it was so dire.
Right.
They
like Keaton Thomas, Sawyer Robinson, like those guys are in it, right? Like those guys are like in it with Aranda. They're not as mercenary. And again, I don't think that's a negative thing. Like if I had Tech's money, I'd also go sign the best players I can. Like this is a personnel sport. Like I'm always going to bet on the players. And so that's why I give Tech a better chance of winning the Big 12 than Baylor. But I do think in a team sport like football, which is very unique and is kind of like, brotherhood and looking across, right? Like kind of militaristic in that kind of way, right? You're like fighting for your brother next to you and all that stuff. Like I do think that matters when adversity strikes. And in the Big 12, adversity is going to strike. And we'll just see how they're able to handle that.
I'll give that one 4 flames. That was spicy.
So that's my bigger one. Okay. All right.
I think my Will Hammond, Wally Pibbs, Behren, Morton is probably actually, I don't know. My Texan one's so specific that's probably spicier. That so many things have to happen.
Right. Yeah. You're threading a needle there for sure.
Okay. My last one, I'm going to UTEP as UTEP makes a bowl. We've workshopped, both of us are high on UTEP. We kind of workshopped this out. I wrote down they're the surprise team of the G5, like Sam Houston. You write they make a bowl game. I think this depends on Malachi Nelson reaching his potential and a question on what is Malachi Nelson's potential. Going to that magazine visit, you expect the coach to say, hey, this is all a competition, right? This is a QB competition. Lincoln Riley used to do this with Jalen Hurts would come in. It's like, he's not coming to be a backup, Lincoln. Right. And I think everyone, including us, thought when Malachi Nelson comes to UTEP, that's your starter. He's going to tear up Conference USA. Then he's going to go to a Power 4 school the next year. The deeper this gets into the spring, into the summer, talk to people around the program, it is not close to a sure thing Nelson's even starting. Skylar Locklear might be the starter come week 1. And you got to wonder, does that say more about Nelson or does that say more about Walden himself being a foxhole guy and he loves the Austin P guys and the guys he knows about? I don't know.
I don't know either. I want to say it's more about Malachi Nelson. I just think we're still stuck on the 5-star thing. And I don't mean just you and I just think in general that tag gets, and if you look at that class, there's a lot of bad quarterback evaluations in that one. I think COVID kind of wrecked a lot of quarterback evaluations and quarterback development over those couple of years. And I just think Malachi Nelson's one that was severely overrated. Didn't win the job at Boise State, drops down to UTEP. I think I flirted with my hot take being Skylar Locklear starts more games than Malachi Nelson. Because I just think you roll with the guy that you know. He had him at Austin P. He's had him for a year at UTEP. As you mentioned in your section, and I've talked to Scotty as well, Skylar Locklear had a really good spring, one that they're calling the best spring that he's had. And he didn't leave right? Like if the writing was on the wall and he exited spring as the surefire backup guy, I'd imagine he finds another place to go play some quarterback. And he didn't do that. And that lends me to believe that he has a real shot of being the starting quarterback here. Regardless, I think UTEP can be really good with either of those guys. I think what we've seen with Sam Houston, what we've seen with Jack State is you can jump from the bottom tier of Conference USA to the second tier of Conference USA really, really easily. Maybe you're not Western Kentucky, maybe you're not Liberty, but you can be the third or fourth best team. And if you're the third or fourth best team in Conference USA, you can get to 9 or 10 wins. Ask Sam Houston State. I don't think they're going to do it the same way. I don't think it's going to be dominant defense, ball control, right? I mean, we know what Scotty's offense is going to be. Yeah. It's going to have to look differently than Sam Houston, but I would not be surprised if UTEP is the surprise team of the G5 in the state where you look down and they're 8-4 or something, and they just win a lot of close games against a lot of bad teams.
Yeah, Malachi Nelson's a good case study of like at what point can you not be called former 5-star anymore?
Right. I think it's your third stop.
Okay, so we're done with that.
Right. At your second stop, you're a former 5-star. At your third stop, when they're progressively lower on the totem pole of stops, right? When you go from USC to Boise State to UTEP, you're just maybe like a former USC quarterback. But I don't know if you're a former 5-star anymore. And again, I think that class was just kind of weird. And I do think just there's some pandemic COVID stuff that happened in those years that like just messed up quarterback evaluations across the board, not just in the evaluation process for recruiting, but I think colleges as well.
And I agree with that, but I would also say, and I like Skylar Locklear, like he showed a lot of toughness last year. That one game, he almost got killed, like decapitated. Like he's a gritty, tough dude. I think UTEP can make a bowl game with Skylar Locklear, and maybe that's our hot take. So yes, they can do that with either or, but I think like the ceiling of UTEP goes 9-3. That can only happen with Nelson, in my opinion.
Well, what games can't they win? Right? Like I'm gonna read the schedule, and you could tell me which games they can't win.
Okay.
Right? Utah State.
They can win that.
UT Martin.
They
and this is with
win
either
that.
quarterbacks, right? This is with either quarterbacks.
Yeah,
right?
they better win UT Martin.
Right. Okay. At Texas, clearly.
Nope.
ULM.
Yes.
La Tech.
Yeah.
Liberty.
Yes, they can.
I'm going to go no. I'll give that no just for argument's sake, right?
Okay.
At Sam. Sure.
Yes.
At Kennesaw.
Yep.
Versus Jack State with a new coach.
Yeah.
At Missouri State, who's a new FBS team.
Yep.
New Mexico State. At Delaware.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
it's there.
I think Liberty and Texas are like the only ones where it's like, no way. They can't win that game. And we saw Kennesaw State beat Liberty last year, right? So like maybe that's not. I just think in Conference USA, there's enough margin of error and there's enough evenness to where like a team like UTEP in year 2 that has recruited really well, that should have some talent, can just jump up and overachieve and win 8 or 9 games. Will they? Don't know. But I think they can for sure.
The one concern, I mean, I have a couple of concerns with UTEP, but my big concern was the defensive line depth. And Katie Johnson is like their one proven guy, the 6-year senior. I did see, though, they got Orion Fisher from West Virginia. That was a late summer transfer portal ad. So that they just need bodies there.
Yeah, you just need bodies up there. You just need bodies. And luckily, they're not going to face a bunch of monsters outside the Texas game. They just got to get out of that Texas game healthy. Sometimes what happens to those G5 programs is they play that body bag or the money bag game and they become the body bag, right? Where they just lead, like this happened to UTSA a couple years ago, where they just like left the Texas game with like 20 guys injured and just never recovered.
Yeah.
You got to stay healthy in that game and survive and advance to play the rest of your schedule. I think a lot of them are coin flip games that they could win. They might not. They could lose also. They could. We went through that list of games they could win. We could have also said they could lose those games, right? Like they could also be 3-9 again if it doesn't work out. But I think they got a chance. I think they got a chance to surprise people. My last one. So I don't think that was all that spicy because I think it could have gotten spicier. I think we could have gone to UTEP wins 8 wins. My last one, I don't know. I don't think this is all that spicy. Texas A&M leads the SEC in rushing.
Yeah, this one's not spicy, I don't think. I like it a lot. But they got Ruben Owens and Le'Veon Moss back and Marcel Reed.
But I think most people would say South Carolina or Alabama or Georgia. I think if you gave the average college football fan, you're like, who's going to lead the SEC in rushing? Like, not many would say A&M. So, like, to me, that makes it spicy. Like, you are a well-versed college football fan, and so maybe it's not that big of a deal to you. But I think to the average person listening to this, maybe I'm wrong here, but I think to the average college football fan, A&M would not be one of the top 3 teams mentioned in terms of leading the SEC in rushing. I think there's an argument Texas could lead the SEC in rushing with Arch Manning and CJ Baxter coming back, Trey Wisner. But I'm going to go with the Aggies. Colin Klein, being the offensive coordinator, obviously he wants to run the football. I think this is going to be the most Kansas State-ass Texas A&M offense that you can find. I think that they're rolling with Marcel Reed, and it's going to look like what Colin Klein's offense looked like when he was an actual quarterback at Kansas State. If there's anybody who can call an offense for a guy who's better at running and maybe limited as a passer, especially vertically, it's the guy who made it Heisman, being a quarterback I just described. Their top 7 offensive linemen come back, including Mark Naboo that had been injured. Their 4 best running backs come back. Marcel Reed's great at running the football. I think they're going to run the ball well. I think they're going to run the ball a lot. And I think that they're going to be a top one. If you take away the option teams, I think Texas A&M is going to be in the running for best running team, not only in the SEC, but in college football. Maybe that's what I should have said. A&M leads the country in rushing the football outside of the Liberties and option teams.
There we go.
We
get spicier as we talk it out.
Right. We get rid of, like the go-go offense, like Liberty, like Army, Navy, like sure, those are going to run the ball more. But in terms of traditional quote-unquote pro-style offenses, I think A&M is going to have the best rushing attack in the country. Maybe Penn State has something to say about that.
We're like Michael Scott. We just start a take. We don't even know where it's going.
Right. That's how bad I am at hot takes.
I went on the 3 Technique podcast. Shout out those guys. Great work they do over there. I went on there Friday. And I was workshopping a take because Mitch, the guy who hosted, is an A&M grad. And I was like, can Texas A&M become the Kansas State of the SEC in terms of smash mouth, hard nose, run the ball type offense? And do A&M fans find that offensive that I say, can they be the Kansas State of the SEC? He seemed to like it. What do you think about, you're saying it right there with the Kansas State offense that they can run.
I think that's what Mike Elko's intention was when he hired Colin Klein, right? Like, you hire Mike Elko to be a down in the dumps, dirty dog team. Like that's what, you would have gone and hired a hotshot offensive coordinator if you wanted to do like what Texas does. When A&M has been at their best historically, they've been a nasty physical wrecking crew, hit you in the mouth, drag you into deep waters and drown you football team. And I think they're trying to get back to that by hiring Mike Elko, and I think Mike Elko leaned into that by hiring Colin Klein. They weren't that last year, but you saw steps towards it. You saw a much more physical football team than you had the last couple of years under Jimbo Fisher. The offensive line, I think, is proof positive number 1. Like, that was a weakness, and it has turned into a strength, and it took 18 months. I think the defense is going to be more physical. I do think that's the aiming point. When they hired Mike Elko, they looked around and they said, the teams winning national championships in the SEC especially are coached by former defensive coordinators who are physical, run the football, and beat you up. And they're trying to bring that. And I think they're also trying to zig from what Texas is with Steve Sarkisian and go the opposite way and not compete in the same lane, but kind of be the antithesis to that program. And not that Texas is like the soft country club program it's known for, but it's a bunch of Ferraris in that garage, right? Like,
literally.
Right.
On recruiting visits.
You know what Sark is trying to put together there. I think A&M's trying to be the kryptonite to that. And in the process, they would become kind of the big bullies of the SEC. I think that's their ultimate goal. Can they get there? I don't know, with Georgia and Bama, but I think that is what they're trying to create there.
So Colin Klein, former Heisman Trophy finalist quarterback. I'm going back to his Heisman Trophy lineup. Who was there at the ceremony with him? It is Johnny Manziel winner, Manti Te'o finished second, Colin Klein is third. The first 2 guys have a Netflix Untold, and the third guy's Colin Klein.
Yeah, right.
Awesome.
The guy who would be the least likely to get a Netflix Untold.
Yeah, everything balances out.
Yeah, it would just be him silently looking at the Netflix camera. That's why it's untold, because he just wouldn't talk.
All right. On that note, those are our spiciest, hottest takes for the college football 2025 season. Craven, any closing thoughts out the door?
Yeah, the top Texas monthly top 50 barbecue joint list dropped today. Was looking at that earlier. I wanted to ask you, when you go to a barbecue place, what's your standard kind of barbecue order? Like, what do you get into when you walk into a barbecue joint for the first time?
Am I sharing or this personal?
It's just a personal plate for Carter Yates. You're on work assignment. You're stopping by, Pinkerton's barbecue for the first time. Kind of what's your kind of get to know a barbecue spot order?
Half pound brisket. Actually, let me go 4th pound lean brisket, 4th pound fatty brisket, and then 4th pound turkey, 4th pound sausage. That's a pound right there. Take some home, obviously. I mean, you're not,
sure, of course.
You take stuff home. Sides, barbecue beans, 100%. Mac and cheese. No, it kind of just like fills me up too much. It takes away from the good. Not that mac and cheese isn't good, but like I'm not going for the mac and cheese. If that makes sense. Yeah. Barbecue beans. I like potato salad too. I know it's kind of the same thing as mac and cheese in the fill up category, but I don't know. Potato salad when it's cold is kind of refreshing a little bit almost.
You a mustard or mayonnaise potato salad guy?
Huh?
You a mustard or mayonnaise potato salad guy?
I'm going mustard because I already saw your tweet about it.
Yeah. Just not a big mayonnaise fan. Just not, I mean, I can eat it in certain things. Like, it's not my biggest thing. Matt Stepp's always giving me a hard time for this. I have a pretty controversial opinion about sides at a barbecue place. I don't get them unless I've gone there multiple times. And like, I know that I like one of them a lot. Like it's kind of a unique thing. Like at Pinkerton's, they have kind of like a duck gumbo that I think is really good. And I'll get some of that. But if I'm going to a barbecue joint for the first time, I'm not going to mess with the potato salad and the beans and the mac and cheese. Like I'm there to see how good their meat is.
How can they run the ball?
Right. So I'm doing a 3rd pound of fatty brisket, a couple sausage links, a couple pork ribs. And then I was excited that you said this. I think smoked turkey, barbecue turkey, I think is the most underrated thing at most barbecue places. I also get some of that, take it home, and then that becomes sandwiches for the week. That's kind of how I roll with that.
Now, are you going sandwiches at the restaurant? Like get the bread at the restaurant? Okay.
No, I don't want to get made fun of. I don't want to be that guy. I make fun of that guy, right? I try not to be the sandwich guy at a barbecue place, especially a nice one. And I also try not to go heavy on the barbecue sauce unless that's like part of the trip. Like Salt Lick in Austin, barbecue sauce is like part of the deal. But for the most part, I think just like a good steak doesn't need steak sauce, good barbecue doesn't need a lot of barbecue sauce, especially good brisket.
I agree with that 100%.
Traditionalist. I'm old school.
What's the best barbecue restaurant in Austin?
I think for your bang for your buck in terms of the line, I think Style Switch is hard to beat. They don't sell out. There's not usually a ton of line. It's right there on Burnett next to the Yellow Rose. So if you have a good afternoon, you can barbecue and enjoy yourself a little bit. Probably, I don't know. I guess Franklin's is still probably up there, Law Barbecue. But there's a place like I haven't tried. I think it's Leroy and Jones, maybe. I haven't tried that one, and I hear that is really good. I'm gonna have to get over there and try that one. I haven't got to. Interstellar may be the answer, honestly, in terms of Austin. I took a long route to that, but Interstellar may be. I was trying to look up Leroy and Lewis is the place in Austin I haven't been to, and it got number 2 on the list this year. So I have to get there. Burt Bean Company in Seguin was the number 1 spot. Also haven't been there.
I'm a normie. I'm a Terry Black's Spartan Springs guy.
Yeah, Terry Black's great. Terry Black's is great.
Also, not traditional barbecue, but Loro, that Asian infused barbecue, is pretty solid too.
When I met my wife, she lived on South Lamar, and we frequented that place a decent amount because she's a vegetarian, but it has some good vegetarian options. So I could get barbecue, she could eat whatever weird food she was eating, and we could both be satisfied, which to me are the greatest restaurants because I now have to think about that.
Also, though, Loro does have a bit of that vegan flair to it where all the food's way too small.
Right.
Like the briskets, like you get 2 slabs.
Yeah. And
it's like, I'm still hungry.
$1,000.
Yeah, basically. So that's why it's not my number 1.
Yeah. I've branched out from the brisket loving because 1, it's too expensive. And also I've turned 40 and I just have a hard time with the fatty smoked red meat. It just it gets me. It absolutely gets me. And so I've moved to more sausage, pork rib, turkey in my barbecue thing. It's been it's tough. Don't get old, Carter.
Yeah, that meat candy, man. Sometimes that meat candy sits wrong. All right, y'all. Well, that's going to do it for our college football podcast and barbecue review. For senior writer Mike Craven, I am Carter Yates signing off the Republic of Football podcast. Podcast over.